Know those two-letter words you need to know.
Well, speaking of lions, look at Gary's game phase preparation. He looks like he's just getting started. And as I mentioned before, when we do play Ultimate Moves tomorrow, Gary will be in one of the teams. It hasn't all been determined yet, but he'll be in either Team Randy or Team Rex. And he's going to be taking it extremely seriously. So the rest of his buds in the team might be joking around and trash talking. Gary's going to be like, you got to win that.
Exactly. It's all about the competition for Gary. Competitor first, above all.
Does he feel the old fire? Does he want to continue after these next two games? Does he feel like he can compete with this generation comfortably? Maybe not classical chess because he doesn't have a lot of time to do so, but more rapid, more blitz.
But look at that performance. After a terrible first round loss, he's been on fire. I mean, draws and wins. That's what he's doing. And look at this. We have finally his beloved knight. No bishop e5 checks. And let's see if somebody will finally test him in a main line. No, it's h3.
You
no bishop
g5.
g5.
Kind of bishop g5 or bishop e3.
Absolutely. h2, h3 by Linear. Oh well.
Wonder why he's hesitating here, given that
this is. You can go into the shenanigan systems with e6, or maybe a dragon system with g6. In a previous game against Kara's attack, Gary had played knight d7. Was that against Jan? I'm not sure, but h7, h6. Now Gary's choice as he's mixing up his defensive schemes.
One of the greatest specialists of all time in this structure, the flexible one with those pawns, as opposed to the fixed one with the pawn on e5.
Bishop g2, bringing the bishop to the long diagonal. Oh,
g5.
Now that's rambunctious. Okay, that's just plain honorary.
And he did that with force, by the way. He played it with Alan. You can see that Gary's having fun here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he's got the e5 square.
Fun is one thing, but playing positionally correct is something that's really important to Gary. He doesn't just make moves just because they're entertaining. He makes them because he believes that it's the right thing to do in the structure.
Exactly, and he has played for the square e5, and after the move queen e2, he's planted his knight. Oops, excuse me, my mouse slipped. He's planted his knight in the center of the board. The idea behind the move g5 is to stop white from playing f2, f4, giving this knight on e5 the boot. If the knight maintains its position on e5, everybody and his brother likes black's position.
The only worry in this kind of formation is the move h4 eventually.
And castle's queenside. That's what we like to see in the Sicilian. Castle's on opposite side. Well, castle's on one side right now.
Right, at the moment the king is on.
Next stop though was h4 and knight back to d7, handling h4, but it can still play because f4 is going to come next.
No, h4, rook g8 is an automatic, Maurice.
And that's what happened.
That is exactly what happened.
Takes twice.
It takes twice, hg, hg. And now the idea here is that with the queen and the rook both guarding this pawn on g5, you're not going to be able to win that pawn on g5. You may play rook h5 and rook h1, but you're not going to win the pawn on g5 because the move bishop e7 would further cement the g5. Now, what Gary wants to do is just fix the king side. Please don't do anything over there, and let me have my fun on the queen side. b5, bishop b7, rook c8, rook takes c3, and a positional exchange sacrifice would win the game.
That pawn is keeping both bishops. That pawn on g5
That's a lot of moves.
is keeping both bishops out of the game, and the knights are being kept out of the game by the one pawn on e6. So those are public enemies number 1 and 2.
Those maybe 3.
Yeah, those pawns are why you play the Sicilian, knowing that you can keep your opponent out of the game. Now, king b1, a typical move.
Gary will be happy to see. b7, b5.
A whole tempo as far as Gary's concerned. And now, this move he might have wanted to see happen. Can he get away with knight takes on b5? I don't think so. This is usually a typical Sicilian sacrifice because you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah,
but this doesn't look like
it's queen a5 at the end, which seems like a rain on your parade.
Yes,
Absolutely.
and he's played a3 instead of this sacrifice. a3 followed by bishop to b7 by Gary.
So Gary's bishop emerges on a very nice diagonal opposing this. Geez, that's a terrible arrow. What am I doing? Bishop on b7 opposes the bishop on g2. And again, very straightforward. Rook c8, rook takes c3, strategic exchange sacrifice on tap.
Bishop
for
c1 has been played.
Bishop c1. So the idea behind the move bishop c1 is to be able to meet rook c8 with the move rook h3 to defend along the third rank, and he has played rook c8.
And that's
rook
exactly
h3.
what we saw.
Yeah, otherwise, rook takes c8, that's a pattern that the Sicilian
Well, I like the dragon,
players,
so I'm right there with you. Take that on c3, and it's pretty impressive to see Dominguez play these strong defensive ideas, but he's taken some time to find them, Yaz. He's got 2.5 minutes to Gary's 4+. So advantage so far in this game for Gary in handling the clock.
Absolutely, but remember, Gary's king now is stuck in the middle of the board. He cannot castle
And
on
will
either
be
side.
forever.
He has forfeited both. That
Right.
means that he needs to keep this knight entrenched on e5 and the pawn on g5, because
Right.
there could be any time a knight d5 or a knight f5, pick 'em which one goes where first to try to open up the game. At the moment, f4 is the only sensible lever in the position that white can use, but that pawn on g5 is saying, you will never play this way. So what does black do? Black
Right.
needs to generate something, because here comes, because his position is just going to sit still for a while. So he's backed his knight up.
I would put my knights on g6 and e5. I was going to suggest bishop e7, followed by knight on d7 to f8 to g6. Gary did it in a far more direct way. He dropped back his knight. He's going to bring this other knight to e5. He's going to put his bishop on e7. And on a good day, he's going to play king f8, king g7, rook h8, and just neutralize any possible white threats. The reason why the knight on g6 is better than the knight on d7, it has to do with f2, f4. Even though white was never ready for that, you just take it away. You take that option away completely from white.
Now,
Sorry, Jennifer.
I was just going to say, I want to try
Bishop-
to find ways to sacrifice in this position,
Bishop
because your king is in the
h1.
center.
Well, bishop h1 really is a move that Gary's very happy about, because it means that when he challenges for supremacy over the h-file, there will be no rook d1, h1 as an option.
He's put his
And-
knight on e5,
yes.
and
The knight on d7 went to e5.
yes.
And then
And
this
then-
move, rook to g3, has occurred.
Who knows? It doesn't seem like white has
What?
any significant
Okay.
plan in this position.
Maybe he's
Lanier-
trying to play knight f5
Yeah,
and
Lanier
sacrifice. With
definitely
take back with the
floundering.
pawn on g5 and then play bishop takes g5. But
Lanier definitely floundering a bit here in this position. He got a position that he doesn't feel very comfortable with, because Gary is going to play bishop e7 and rook h8, and then it's black who has good operations down the h-file.
But knight f5 is a serious idea. I mean, especially in a blitz game, because we can also consider taking with the e pawn, and bishop takes b7 is possible.
And bishop e7 was played.
And then knight a2 from Dominguez.
Knight a2.
Yeah, he's
again.
concerned about his knight because of some potential sacrifices. Now he's played rook to c3, going full defensive throttle, trying to eliminate all of black's aggressive pieces. Gary with double the time virtually on his clock, but ticking down, actually only a minute ahead right now. But rook to c3 on the board. And it's really this kind of position, how do you improve, how do you improve? Well, that bishop on h1 looks just
Nasty.
pretty
Yeah.
miserable.
Well,
Not a happy camper in a
rook c-
trade. It has happened on
Rook takes
c3.
Knight takes c3 has happened. I was going to say, with that knight on a2, especially, I really like rook h2, just introducing the rook into the game, attacking this
c7,
pawn
by the
on
way.
f2.
Queen c7 was Gary's choice, and bishop g2 trying to crawl back into the game.
Crawl is the right word.
Well,
Your
again,
hands and knees
I mean,
in this
whether
position.
rook h2 again is just begging to be played, attacking the bishop, and he hasn't
Queen
played it.
He's played
c4.
queen c4 instead.
Going into a nice ending.
Well, we know those Sicilian games tend to be good, but I liked your idea, that very active. Queen takes c4 instead, and queen c4 instead, and Dominguez playing queen takes c4 quite quickly.
Knight takes c4 is a rather automatic recapture. Gary considering b takes c4, but I like the knight on the c4 square very much. And he has played b takes c4.
Well,
Now,
he thinks that bishop on
F3 allowing rook to H2.
And that bishop is like checkmated, right, guys?
Woeful.
He's got to play bishop F1, and that's what he's done.
Rook H2, bishop F1. Oh my! So
now,
Gary
what
just
about
playing a complete
Masterclass,
game.
if you will.
I mean,
Knight H4 is coming, right?
Knight
trying to get
H4
him-
is one of the
Knight H4, bishop E2.
the sensitive F3
Knight
script.
F4
Instead, he's playing
instead.
Knight F4, and then
Knight
immediate
F4.
bishop E3. It's one of his only good pieces here that dark squared a bishop, so he's keeping it on the board.
Well, Black might start thinking about getting a very good dark squared bishop for himself, either with bishop D8, bishop D6 ideas, or simply bishop F6 ideas. Again, I would like the knight on C4, not the pawn on C4.
Bishop D8 has been played, and it is a blitz game, so we
It
like
is a
Gary's
blitz game.
game, but it's a 1 minute end game.
And by the way, with this queen trade, it basically means that this black king that stayed in the center of the board, never castled, is completely safe. And in fact, very, very good in the center of the board.
The challenge for White is no plan. White has
Correct.
no plan at all. He has nothing to do. The difficulty for Black is when is the break? D5, F5. If you can do piece pressure and somehow crack one of those pawns, particularly that F3 pawn, the F3 pawn is the main weakness here. Everything else is defended. So if somehow you can make him move around his pieces and then you can get at that F pawn, otherwise Black also has no plan.
By the way, Lanier, I must say, has just played so passively this game. He really did not bring his best. And Gary is looking really great.
That G5 idea, yeah, was
The-
that good?
Yeah, he hit the
He's
nail.
played rook D2, rook takes D2, bishop takes D2, all on the board, and then a quick bishop B6 from Gary.
Wait a second, is
That's
the F3
game
pawn
over.
dropping?
Yeah, that's game over. Bishop B6 by Gary Kasparov. He's going to eliminate this knight, which is the sole defender of this pawn on F3. When that pawn falls, it's like the dam bursting.
And that's the problem with making these types of trades. You know, what
He's played
happens
bishop
is
takes
you
F4, G
lose
takes F4.
tempos.
Bishop takes F4, G
And
takes
there's the
F4.
D5 break.
And
There
there's
is the move he needed, and now what Black is definitely winning with only 8 seconds left for White. If he's got to play Bishop G2, everything's wrong with his game as Gary's just completely owned the game.
Is
There-
knight takes G4 a shot, Maurice?
Knight takes G4 is
And there it
definitely a
is.
shot.
He's
Knight
taking
F4, Knight, and he's dropping a piece, isn't he? Is he going to drop a piece in this position? No, his Knight's going to be able to click on D5 when the time is right.
Knight D4 back.
Well, knight
Knight takes
G2,
G2 and
bishop
gift
takes
me another
F3.
pawn. 2 passed pawns on the board now for Black.
And
Those
it's
F and E
over.
pawns. This is over. Gary has played like a boss this
And
game.
there's E5 here as
E5,
well. That just
exactly.
wins the game, doesn't it?
Exactly.
It looks like Dominguez was ready to resign. But
E5, he has
E5,
knight
knight
H4.
H4 is the only
Or
move,
Knight E1.
right?
2 moves to attack that bishop. But
By the way, some
So he's just
move
playing
like
king
bishop
E7.
E3. Yo, king E7 is a nice move too.
Now
Gary
E5
just,
wins.
Gary's
because
just putting
there's-
the finishing touches
There's
here.
also bishop E3 check, putting the king back all the way into the corner.
or bishop,
Right.
bishop E3. And now bishop E4 looks final,
Scrumptious.
no?
Scrumptious.
Oh, he gave his bishop away.
No, that's okay because the king, White's
this is
king,
winning too, of course.
Yeah, no, White's king is completely stuck. You don't have to do anything. Gary, just push your pawns.
This is
He
done.
hears you, yes, he
Yeah.
hears you. And
2
Dominguez
seconds
is-
left, and his time is running down. He doesn't have to
Take
take
it.
this pawn, but why not take
Why
it?
not? Then just king C4. Instead, he's played bishop B5.
Got to move. King takes, and
This is just
now he's got a
king
little
takes
trick,
C3.
but king takes on
Instead of-
C3. He's just
instead
not
of-
resigning, but momentum only. But now it's
Right.
resignable. Now
Yes.
you cannot stop the move.
And there it
Wow.
is. Big win for Gary Kasparov there.
By
It
the
was-
way,
And our leader finishing up his game. Let's take a look at that game between Fabi and Levon.